Welcome to our deep dive into the world of modern architecture.
Yeah.
You shared Paul Joseph Watson's audio essay with us, and
Mhm.
I'm excited to kind of explore it together.
Yeah.
I know you're particularly interested in the why behind
Right.
modern architecture's distinct look and how it relates to social engineering, and
Yeah.
if there are any alternative approaches out there.
Well, Watson makes a strong point right off the bat.
Okay.
Architecture is more than just aesthetics.
Mm-hmm.
It's a powerful form of communication.
Yeah.
And as he argues, it can shape our behavior.
Right.
And even influence our sense of civic pride.
Okay.
He dives into the stark contrast between architecture that uplifts
Mm-hmm.
and that which can actually encourage, as he puts it, ugly behavior.
It's fascinating because it goes beyond just personal taste, right?
Right.
He's suggesting that buildings can have a real impact on how we interact with our surroundings and with each other.
Exactly. He even talks about how the buildings we leave behind are a legacy for future generations.
Yeah.
They offer a glimpse into our values
Uh-huh.
and priorities, almost like a time capsule of our culture.
Yeah. Okay, so let's unpack this idea of good versus bad architecture.
Sure.
Watson seems particularly critical of modern architecture's emphasis on function over form.
Yeah.
He calls out brutalism with its raw concrete and
Sure.
sharp angles as a prime example of this.
He argues that this shift towards purely utilitarian design was a reaction against traditional styles,
Okay.
which were seen as outdated and even oppressive after World War II.
Okay.
Architects like Louis Sullivan championed the idea that form follows function.
Right.
But Watson suggests that this principle, while well-intentioned,
Yeah.
ended up being used to justify some truly awful buildings.
He uses a great visual here,
Yeah.
a boarded up, vandalized building,
Uh-huh.
to illustrate how purely functional architecture can backfire instead of being inviting and useful.
Right.
These spaces often become derelict and attract unwanted activity. It's almost like they repel people rather than drawing them in.
It really highlights the importance of considering both form and function.
Oh, okay.
And this is where Watson brings in the controversial figure of Le Corbusier,
Right.
a giant in modern architecture.
Yeah.
He points to Le Corbusier's designs, especially those massive tower blocks intended for mass housing, as a turning point.
Watson calls Le Corbusier a modernist guru and suggests that his vision went beyond just design.
Yeah.
He uses the term social engineering to describe Le Corbusier's approach, implying that there was a deliberate attempt to reshape society through architecture.
And what's interesting here is that while these tower blocks were often presented as utopian solutions to housing shortages,
Right.
the reality was often quite different.
Yeah.
Cities like London and Birmingham,
Uh-huh.
which embraced Le Corbusier's ideas,
Right.
ended up with these sprawling concrete landscapes that often became associated with crime and social isolation.
It's almost ironic these buildings intended to create a better future ended up exacerbating the very problems they were supposed to solve.
Right.
It makes you wonder if there were fundamental flaws in the design or if there were other social factors at play that weren't adequately addressed.
It's a complex issue, and Watson doesn't shy away from exploring the practical problems with these structures as well.
Okay.
He talks about the recurring issues of water damage, moss growth, and even the fire safety hazards associated with certain building materials.
He even brings up the tragic Grenfell Tower fire as a stark reminder of the real-world consequences of architectural choices.
Yes, and he strengthens his point with a quote from a UK parliamentary debate,
Right.
where a politician highlights the disconnect between people's preferences and what was being built.
Okay.
The quote emphasizes that people consistently favored houses over tower blocks, yet continued to be subjected to these unwanted structures. It raises questions about who was really driving these decisions and whose needs were actually being met.
It seems like there was a disconnect between the vision of the architects and the lived experiences of the people who had to inhabit these spaces.
Absolutely. And this leads Watson to another point of contention.
Okay.
The destruction of beautiful historic buildings to make way for modern structures. He uses the example of Birmingham replacing a beautiful library with a brutalist one, only to demolish it again years later.
Wow.
And replace it with a structure that many argue is even worse.
It almost feels like a comedy of errors, but with a tragic undertone.
It does.
He also highlights the proposed demolition of Bath, a city known for its Georgian architecture.
Right.
And the story of Liverpool's Catholic Cathedral, where the final result fell far short of the original grand design.
There's a palpable sense of frustration in his tone as he details these decisions.
Yeah.
It's like he's witnessing a disregard for beauty and history in the relentless pursuit of modernity. But as he points out, the architectural trends didn't stop at brutalism.
Right. He goes on to discuss the shift from concrete to those massive structures of glass and steel that dominate many cityscapes today. And while they might not be as overtly brutalist, he argues that they can be equally soulless and lacking in the warmth and character of older buildings.
He cites examples like the Shard in London, the Whitney Museum in New York, and the Kunsthaus Graz in Austria. They're visually striking, yes, but many argue they lack the human scale and connection to the surrounding environment that make older buildings so appealing.
And this is where he shares that interesting anecdote about the Tour Montparnasse in Paris.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently, the Parisian authorities were so horrified by its impact on the city's skyline that they banned tall buildings soon after.
Wow.
It's almost as if they realized the unintended consequences of this kind of large-scale development.
It speaks to a growing awareness of how these imposing structures can disrupt the existing urban fabric and create a sense of disharmony in the cityscape. And this leads Watson to a rather provocative concept.
Okay.
The globalist goal, a deliberate effort, as he sees it, to create a world of identical, monotonous cities.
He suggests that this homogenization of the built environment could lead to a dulling of the senses and a loss of individual identity.
He connects this idea to the rise of micro-apartments and the zoning practices that segregate living spaces in many suburbs.
Right.
He seems to be warning against a future where everything is standardized.
Yeah.
And we lose that sense of unique character and diversity that makes places special.
He even throws in a startling statistic: up to 1 billion birds dying annually from colliding with glass buildings.
Yeah.
It's a jarring reminder of the unintended ecological consequences of these design choices.
Right.
But before we descend too far into architectural despair, Watson does offer a glimmer of hope.
He does. He highlights the emergence of neo-traditional architecture, which draws inspiration from classical and vernacular styles while adapting them to modern needs.
He cites examples like the Schermerhorn Symphony Center with its intricate detailing and harmonious proportions, and the town of Poundbury built on traditional urban planning principles.
And importantly, he clarifies that appreciating traditional architecture doesn't equate to rejecting all things modern.
Right.
It's about advocating for designs that respect history, place, and human scale.
Yeah.
It's about finding a balance between preserving the best of the past and embracing innovation in a way that enhances rather than diminishes our lived experience.
I think that's a great place to stop for today.
Yeah, I agree.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
It's a lot to process.
It is, and we'll pick up the conversation next time and delve deeper into Watson's critique of modern architecture.
Looking forward to it.
Me too.
See you then.
Yeah.
It's refreshing to hear someone advocating for that balance.
Right.
You know, it often feels like the conversation gets polarized between those who cling to the past and those who embrace anything new, regardless of its merit.
Right. And I think Watson makes a really compelling case for why this matters.
You know, he goes beyond aesthetics and argues that architecture can be a powerful tool for shaping our values and even influencing our behavior.
He even suggests that some aspects of modern architecture could be seen as a form of social control.
Right.
Think about those imposing brutalist structures or those vast anonymous glass towers. He argues they're not just aesthetically displeasing, but can actually make us feel small and insignificant, even powerless.
It's an interesting perspective. It makes you think about how the design of a space can impact your mood.
Yeah.
And even your sense of agency.
Right.
Could it be that these buildings are subconsciously reinforcing a sense of conformity and obedience?
That's what Watson seems to be suggesting.
Okay.
And he connects this idea to the broader trend of globalization and the homogenization of culture.
Right.
He argues that this loss of regional distinctiveness, this sense that every city is starting to look and feel the same, isn't just a coincidence.
So he's suggesting there's a deliberate agenda behind this push for a uniform aesthetic.
That's his argument. And it definitely raises some questions about who's making these decisions and what their motivations might be.
Well, whatever the motives, it's hard to deny that a lot of modern architecture lacks the charm and character of older buildings.
Yeah.
Even when they're not outright ugly, there's a certain coldness and detachment that can be quite alienating.
And this is where Watson injects a bit of humor into his critique.
Okay.
He takes a detour to discuss the work of architect Norman Foster, known for iconic London buildings like the Gherkin and the ill-fated Tulip skyscraper.
Right.
Watson points out Foster's, shall we say, fondness for phallic forms in his designs.
Yeah, I have to admit, that part made me chuckle.
Right.
It's so unexpected, but it also makes you look at these buildings in a whole new light.
Right. It's a bit of comic relief, but it also serves a purpose.
Okay.
Watson is highlighting the disconnect between the intellectual justifications often given for these modern designs and how they're actually perceived by the public.
He's poking fun at the pretension of some architects, but he's also pointing out that these designs can feel out of place in the existing urban fabric.
Yeah.
It's like they're trying to impose a new aesthetic without any consideration for the historical context or the needs of the people who will actually be living and working in these spaces.
And that brings us back to his central concern, the impact of these trends on our cities.
Okay.
He uses London as his primary example, pointing to projects like the redevelopment of Battersea Power Station and the controversial Nine Elms development.
Battersea Power Station, once a symbol of industrial might, has been transformed into, as he puts it, a hollowed-out shopping mall.
Right.